Shooting in JPEG is one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a photographer, and you need to switch over to RAW. Let me explain how to do that in this video. Hey, what's up everyone? It's Chris from Brooker Films, and in today's video we're talking all about RAW photography, and more precisely, what is RAW and why should you be using it rather than JPEG. Now, JPEG is your standard file format that your camera will shoot your images in, and JPEG's fine because it compresses the images to a lower file size, and this means you can capture more when you're on your shoot. But the problem is, with JPEG, once you've shot your image, that's it. You have very little room to edit the image in post, and this means you don't have a lot of flexibility when it comes to editing. This basically means you can't take your photo to that next level. So this is where you want to switch over to RAW. Now, the big difference between JPEG and RAW is when you shoot an image in JPEG, all of your settings are baked into the image. So this basically means when you set your white balance and your exposure, if you didn't get it right on the day, then you're gonna have a very difficult time in the edit trying to correct this. Whereas RAW gives you more flexibility when you're shooting. So if you set your white balance to 5500 kelvins on the day of the shoot, but you need it to be 3200, if you shot your image in RAW, then all you need to do is just change the white balance in the edit. It's really cool, it's a massive lifesaver, and it gives you more flexibility in the edit. Another real added benefit of RAW is it gives you full control of your exposure. It gives you full access to the powerful capabilities of the camera sensor. So when you capture an image in JPEG, the shadows are going to be crushed, and if you've overexposed the highlights, then you've ruined the image and there's no way of bringing back those highlights and those crushed shadows. Whereas when you shoot in RAW, you use every single speck of data that the camera sensor can handle, and you can play with all of this within the edit. So if you overexpose your highlights, as long as you haven't pushed them too far, you can restore these within the edit. So if we drop two images into Adobe Lightroom, one is JPEG and one is RAW, let me show you how much flexibility shooting in RAW gives you. Now, we have a JPEG image here, and if we try and pull down the highlights, unfortunately, it's not doing much. We're not getting much information back from this image, and we're pretty limited to what we can do with this. Whereas when we try to edit the RAW image, when we pull the highlights down, all of the information of the highlights is recovered, and this is making our image look more professional because we've captured the highlights correctly. And now the same thing applies for the shadows also. So if we try to pull up the shadows on the JPEG image, it starts to look really ugly. Whereas when we pull up the shadows on the RAW image, all of the data is perfectly retrieved, and all of that data from the shadows can be displayed. Capturing your photos in RAW gives you so much flexibility when you're in the edit. The only downside to shooting in RAW is you do need a program like Adobe Lightroom to read the photos, and the image file sizes are much larger than JPEG. This means if you have an SD card only capable of shooting around 100 JPEG images, then you're only going to get around 20, 30, maybe even 40 RAW images. This is because the file size is much higher, and that's because none of the information has been compressed. But that's a very small price to pay considering that SD cards are now really cheap, they're really affordable, so all you would need to do to remedy this issue is just buy more SD cards and take more SD cards to the shoot. So if you're looking for a way to take your photos to that next level and gain more control within the edit, then I would seriously recommend switching your camera over from JPEG to RAW. And there you go. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please do let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to check out the previous video by clicking this box just down here. See you on the next video.